Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and sometimes controversial ideas in psychology. Sigmund Freud's psychosexual theory of personality development. By the end of this video, you'll clearly understand each of Freud's 5 stages, how they shape personality, and why unresolved childhood conflicts can follow us into adulthood. So, let's begin. Part 1. Who was Sigmund Freud? Freud was an Austrian neurologist and the founder of psychoanalysis, a revolutionary approach to understanding the human mind. He believed that most of our thoughts, feelings, and desires come from the unconscious mind, a place we're not even aware of. Freud also believed that personality develops through a series of psychosexual stages, where different parts of the body become sources of pleasure and psychological conflict. He proposed 5 main stages: oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. Part 2. The oral stage. Birth to 1 year. The first stage is the oral stage, and which begins at birth and lasts until about 1 year of age. During this time, the baby's mouth is the center of pleasure. Sucking, biting, and swallowing bring comfort and satisfaction. Freud said that the child's main task here is to develop trust. If caregivers meet the baby's needs, feeding, attention, and comfort, the child learns that the world is safe. But if these needs aren't met, or if the weaning process happens too early or too late, the child might develop an oral fixation. As an adult, this could appear as habits like smoking, overeating, nail biting, or even being overly dependent on others. So, in simple terms, when the baby's mouth is happy, the baby feels safe. When it's not, problems might show up later in life. Part 3. The anal stage, 1 to 3 years. Next comes the anal stage from ages 1 to 3. Here, the focus of pleasure moves to the anus. And yes, that sounds strange at first, but it's about learning control. This is the stage of toilet training. Children are learning to control their bladder and bowel movements, one of their first experiences of independence and discipline. If parents are too strict, the child might become what Freud called anal retentive, overly tidy, stubborn, or obsessed with order. If parents are too lenient, the child may become anal expulsive, messy, careless, or disorganized. So, this stage is really about learning balance between control and freedom. Too much or too little can lead to problems later. Part 4. The phallic stage, 3 to 6 years. From ages 3 to 6, we enter the phallic stage. Here, the focus of pleasure moves to the genital area, and children become aware of gender differences. Freud believed that this stage is where major identity formation begins. And it's also where his most famous idea appears: the Oedipus complex. The Oedipus complex for boys. According to Freud, a young boy develops an unconscious attraction to his mother and feels jealousy and rivalry toward his father. He also fears punishment from his father and what Freud called castration anxiety. Eventually, the boy resolves this conflict by identifying with his father, learning to be like him, and adopting his values. This identification helps form the superego, the moral part of the personality. The Electra complex for girls. For girls, Freud suggested a similar idea called the Electra complex. A girl develops affection for her father and competes with her mother, experiencing what Freud called penis envy, not literally about anatomy, but about power and status. Like boys, girls resolve this conflict by identifying with the same-sex parent, their mother. If this stage goes well, the child develops a healthy sense of identity and morality. If not, fixation may lead to vanity, recklessness, or difficulty forming mature romantic relationships later in life. Part 5. The latency stage, 6 years to puberty. After the emotional storms of the phallic stage, the mind takes a break. From about 6 years old until puberty, the latency stage begins. During this period, sexual impulses are repressed, or pushed into the unconscious. Children focus their energy on school, friendships, hobbies, and learning skills. This stage is all about social and intellectual development. It's when kids learn teamwork, communication, and confidence. No major psychosexual conflicts occur here, but it's a crucial time for building self-esteem and forming healthy relationships. Part 6. The genital stage, puberty to adulthood. Finally, we reach the genital stage, beginning at puberty and continuing through adulthood. Now, the earlier sexual feelings return, but in a mature, socially appropriate way. Pleasure is again centered on the genitals, but it's expressed through romantic love, intimacy, and meaningful relationships. If the earlier stages were resolved successfully, the person becomes emotionally balanced, caring, and capable of healthy adult relationships. But if there were fixations or unresolved conflicts, the adult might struggle with intimacy, selfishness, or immaturity. Freud described this as the stage of psychological maturity, where one learns to balance love and work. Part 7. Fixation and regression. Let's pause for a moment and talk about two important ideas that connect all these stages: fixation and regression. Fixation means getting stuck at a stage because a conflict wasn't resolved. For example, someone fixated at the oral stage might rely on smoking to relieve stress. Regression means going back to an earlier stage under stress. For example, an adult under pressure might start overeating or biting nails. Behaviors linked to early childhood comfort. Freud believed that much of adult personality, including our habits, preferences, and anxieties, can be traced back to these childhood experiences. Part 8. The structure of personality, id, ego, and superego. To fully understand Freud's theory, we also need to know how he viewed the mind's structure. He divided personality into three parts: id, ego, and superego. The id is the primitive part of the mind, driven by instinct and the desire for immediate pleasure. It follows the pleasure principle. The ego develops to deal with reality. It follows the reality principle, balancing desires with what's socially acceptable. The superego is the moral part, our conscience shaped by parents and society. A healthy personality, according to Freud, depends on keeping these three parts in balance. Part 9. Criticism and legacy. Now, Freud's psychosexual theory is over a century old, and it has faced a lot of criticism. Modern psychologists argue that it's not scientifically testable and relies too much on sexuality to explain behavior. However, even critics agree that Freud made a massive contribution by emphasizing the importance of early childhood experiences, introducing the idea of the unconscious mind, and showing that human behavior is more complex than it appears. His ideas laid the foundation for modern psychology, psychotherapy, and counseling. Part 10. Quick summary. Let's quickly review the 5 stages. Oral stage, 0 to 1 year. Pleasure through the mouth. Trust and dependence develop. Anal stage, 1 to 3 years. Control through toilet training. Independence and order. Phallic stage, 3 to 6 years. Awareness of gender, identity formation, Oedipus, electrocomplex. Latency stage, 6 to 12 years. Sexual impulses repressed. Focus on learning and social skills. Genital stage, 12 plus years. Mature love, work, and balance. The stage of adulthood. If conflicts are resolved at each stage, the person becomes a balanced, loving, and responsible adult. If not, unresolved issues may appear as personality traits, habits, or emotional challenges. So, that's Freud's psychosexual theory, a journey from infancy to adulthood, exploring how our earliest experiences shape who we become. Whether you agree with Freud or not, his work changed the way we think about the human mind forever. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with friends who love psychology. And tell us in the comments, which stage do you think influences people the most? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.